back to Free to Be, guys, and today we're going to be talking about financial statements, specifically the 10K and the 10Q. You wonder what those things are? Well, if you do, you came to the right place, so let's get started. All right, well, have you guys ever hit the like button down below? If you haven't, it's okay. And if you have, I do appreciate the support because it does help my videos and the channel. So really, thank you so much if you have. If not, go ahead and take a second and just hit that like button down for me. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe because we do put out some valuable content out there on a weekly basis. So the financial statements are out there. Sometimes they seem complex, but where can you find the trusted information, right? The information that can guide you to make some informed and valuable decisions when you're investing in a company. So there are other financial reports as well, or financial statements, like the annual statement that the companies file, and there's also 8Ks that are quarterly or more sporadic. We'll cover those in a subsequent video, but in this video particularly, we just want to talk about the 10K and the 10Q, go over some of the differences, and then kind of let you guys know where you can find that information if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so let's start with the 10K. Well, in the simplest form, the 10K is a public disclosure that companies, publicly traded companies, need to file with the SEC within a few months of the close of the calendar year. So the 10K breaks down everything from the geographic sources of the revenue to maturity bonds that have been issued by the company. Now, many people find the 10K to be complex, but that's not really the case if you know what you're looking for. And really, the reason that most people do find the 10K to be complex is because it does route the reader between two different reports, the other report being the annual report that companies file, and that's because those two are filed so close in proximity. But really, if you know what you're looking for, it's not that difficult to navigate the 10K. Now again, I will make a video in the future kind of going over the ins and outs of what is covered in an annual report, which is different than what's covered in the 10K and 10Q. Similar, but different. And I should note that the 10K is only filed once a year. Okay, in contrast, the 10Q is similar to the 10K, but it's for a much more abbreviated timeline. Okay, so for example, if in February of 2019 I filed a 10K for our company and it covers all of 2018 data, then in March of 2019, after that quarter closes, I'd be working on a 10Q that covers January 1st through the end of March. That's usually filed a few weeks after the quarter closes. It has some of the similar information, but it's not as complex or as long as the 10K is. So the good thing about the 10Q is it can kind of give you an idea of things that are happening with the company long before the K is filed. Like I mentioned, if you were looking at a 10Q for Q1 of 2019, you're actually not going to see the rest of 2019 data, or if you want to see 2019 data all in whole, you won't actually see it until 2020. So you're going to be wanting to look at these Qs because they're going to give you some more insight into what's going on. So some of the things you'll get to see in the Q are same things, earnings. You'll be able to see if there were net share repurchases. You can find if the cash flow is positive, what the turnover is like, what are the revenues for that period. So a lot of the similar information that you find in the K, you find in the Q, but again, for an abbreviated time. And you'll see things like changes in working capital and potential legal risks or concerns that may be coming up but haven't really been addressed yet in any kind of annualized type report. And so my personal approach is never to really rely on just one report. I don't just look at the K, the 10K for a company to determine whether that's a company I want to invest in. I usually look at a couple of 10Qs as well, depending on where we are in the year. So if I was in June and I was ready to invest in a company, I definitely want to take a look at the 10K for the year before, and then go ahead and look at the the first 10Q that was filed for that company in the current year as well, just to get an idea of what's happening, so I can make a better informed decision. And now I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, like, where can you find this information? Where are these filings? They are public filings. They're filed with the SEC. So there's two ways you can kind of find this information. One is you can go to the company's website, because I'm pretty sure most companies will have that on there for you. But if you don't want to take that approach, you can just go to the SEC website, sec.gov, and you can search for any publicly traded company and it will list out all of their filings. So let's go ahead and jump into that and I'll show you exactly where you can find it. Guys, so here we are. This is the SEC website and pretty straightforward to get here. It's just www.sec.gov. And one thing I want to point out to you guys, obviously, is when you come onto this website, A lot of people might get mistaken and might use this search bar at the top to look for the filings, and you can, but it involves a lot more navigating, and it's a little bit trickier to navigate using this search bar. So come down and you'll notice about halfway, more than halfway, 2/3 of the way through the bottom of the screen, you'll see it says Edgar Company Filings, and this is where you want to enter your company name, or if you have the ticker symbol handy, you can enter that as well. Now, I'll explain how for publicly traded companies, obviously, executives and the directors, board of director members have to file ownership interest as well. So you can actually look up certain individuals here to see what they own in a particular in their company actually. So for example, Jeff Bezos, if we type in Bezos here, you'll pop over here and you'll see Jeffrey is right up here. We click his little CIK ID and it brings us over to his ownership filings. Now, this will be ownership filings for his own company where he is the CEO and an executive officer, as well as other publicly traded companies where he might be sitting on their board of directors. Now, I'll definitely get into that in a different video and how that impacts, the prices of the various stocks. But for our purposes, we're looking at the Q and the K, the 10Q and the 10K. So let's bounce back here and look at the company we're looking at. So we're gonna be looking at Apple. So you can either obviously type in the ticker and it comes up, or if you wanna, just spell it out, it auto-populates based on what you're typing for the companies. It won't do that for people, but it does for companies. So for our purposes, we're looking at Apple. So let's jump to this. And here it is, guys. That brings you to this page. And this is all of their filings with the most recent filing first. And you can see up here, it'll list out the name of the filing. So the most recent filing they've had here is a 10Q. Obviously, we're excluding ownership, but if you wanted to include it, you could click that button here. But for our purposes, again, we're looking at the Q and the K. So you'll notice that this is the most recent Q they filed on, May 1st. But then let's say you wanted to look at a few of them. How are you going to navigate through all of this? Well, you can come here and narrow the results by just typing in 10Q and then hitting enter. And now you're just basically looking at all the Qs filed for this company. And this actually covers all of the company's filings, going back to when they first filed their S1 to become a publicly traded company. So you're going to basically have access to every single public filing, every single quarterly filing that they have done since they became a publicly traded company. But obviously some of the older ones are not as relative to, determining whether you want to invest. So let's just pop open this first one. You just click this little documents link and then it brings you into another page, and here you'll see what is filed, what goes into this filing. So the first line item is going to be the Q itself, and then there's a few exhibits. Now there's a recent requirement that actually has them link the exhibits within the form as well. So if we click this first link right here, you'll see it'll bring us right to the 10Q, and we can just scroll down and it basically gives you a little bit of table of contents. Then it goes right into your consolidated statements of operations, your comprehensive income tables. Then it goes into the balance sheets and all the information that you kind of want to dig around and look into. If you go down a little bit further, it should give you a little bit of a narrative of what's happening. And so it's not just tables and numbers. There's a little bit of narrative here as well. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there should be a link to those exhibits. Let's see if it's here. There they are. So their exhibits that are associated with this filing will be linked in the exhibit index. Like I said, that's a more recent SEC requirement. I think it's a couple years now, but you basically have to link to any exhibits that you itemize out in your exhibit index. So this is the Q. Like I said, there's a bunch of good information here, so you want to dig around and kind of see what's in here and how the company's performing for the quarter. But if we bounce back here, it's going to be a similar process to access the Ks. Now you see we've narrowed our search results to the Q only, so we're going to just go ahead and remove this. Brings us back to the complete list of all the filings, and then we can narrow it back down to the K. And now here's all the 10Ks that have been filed. So we're going to click on the first one. Again, it brings you to another page where it itemizes out the actual form and all the exhibits.
So the accompanying exhibits are obviously itemized here. You can jump to one if you're looking for a particular one, but obviously it's kind of difficult to tell which one is for what. So the best way to look at the exhibits and kind of understand them is to just go into the form itself. Again, same thing. Here you go, you get your little table of contents, you get some more narrative up front with the 10K as opposed to the 10Q. And then you're obviously going to have your tables at the bottom. And if I scroll all the way down, you will see that, let's see here, I think it's all the way towards the bottom. You'll see that the exhibits will be linked. Here they go. And these were, referenced on the page before. And also there will be additional things that are linked here as well. Those exhibits that we saw on the page before just pertain to this filing, but this filing could also reference past filings. And if it does, it incorporates it through a link to that filing on the site. And that's basically it, guys. So that's how you find, the 10K, 10Q, as well as other filings or ownership interest. You just come over to sec.gov, type in the company name or put in the ticker symbol, and it's as straightforward as that. And then you guys can, obviously see that you can narrow your results within this field here.
Okay, so how do you make sense of all this information? How do you determine what is relevant to you and how you can make decisions based on the information that you just looked over, that you just reviewed? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is hit the subscribe button down below. Turn on those notifications because I will be addressing this in a future video for you guys, and you're not going to want to miss it. So until then, we'll see you next time.